Government Bills. This Council resumes the second reading debate on the Buildings Energy Efficiency Amendment Bill 2025. Dr. Loy Kwok, Chairman of the Bills Committee on the bill, will first address the Council on the committee's report. Dr. Loy Kwok. President, in my capacity as Chairman of the Bills Committee on the Buildings Energy Efficiency Amendments Bill 2025, and I report to the Council the salient points of the Bills Committee's deliberations. The Buildings Energy Efficiency Amendment Bill 2025, or the bill for short, seeks to amend the Buildings Energy Efficiency Ordinance Cap 610 and the subsidiary legislation to strengthen the energy efficiency management regime of buildings in Hong Kong in order to achieve carbon neutrality before 2050. The Bills Committee held 2 meetings and invited written submissions from the public. Members in general supported the bill. It aims to enhance building energy efficiency, reduce the demand for electricity and power generation, thereby lowering carbon emissions on the one hand and easing the financial burden on the public arising from the use of more clean fuels for power generation on the other hand. The Bills Committee has had thorough discussions with the administration on the various proposals in the bill, including 1. Bringing all data centers fully under the regulation of the Building Energy Efficiency Standards, 2. Requiring more types of buildings to conduct regular energy audits, 3. Shortening the intervals of energy audits, 4. Mandating the disclosure of certain technical information in energy audit reports, and 5. Expanding the qualifications eligible for registration as REA, that is, Registered Energy Assessor. Members supported the proposal to bring all data centers fully under the regulation of the Building Energy Efficiency Standards. In order to facilitate compliance by the trade, members urged the administration to improve the drafting of the definition of data center in the bill to clearly reflect the policy intent. Having considered the views of members and the legal advisor to the Bills Committee, the administration will propose an amendment to specify the essential elements that a data center should comprise and to exclude places solely used for the storage of computer systems, servers, telecommunications equipment, and associated support components, as well as places used solely for the storage of any one of the above types of equipment from being defined as a data center under the bill. The administration also indicated that they would consider members' suggestion to settle the subset of data centers in the relevant codes and technical guidelines for the reference of the trade and stakeholders. Members also supported the proposal in the bill to increase the types of buildings required to conduct energy audits from 2 types at present to 11 types. However, they are concerned that 4 types of buildings which are already subject to the regulation of building energy efficiency standards are not included. They are hotel or guest house, common area of an industrial building, common area of a portion of a composite building that is for residential or industrial use, and common area of a residential building. The administration explained that upon review, the energy saving potential of these 4 types of building is very limited. The cost effectiveness of conducting energy audits is relatively low. Therefore, they have not been included in the current scope of regulation. The administration undertook to continue to maintain liaison with the relevant sectors to explore other energy-saving initiatives and to gradually expand the types of buildings required to conduct energy audits. The administration plans to review the implementation and effectiveness of the energy efficiency management regime around 5 years after the full implementation of the amended ordinance. Members noted that the bill introduces a provision for exemption from conducting energy audits on the grounds of safeguarding national security. Members expressed concerns over the specific operational arrangements. In response to the views of members and the legal advisor to the Bills Committee, the administration will propose an amendment to clearly specify the deadline for building owners to complete the first energy audit after the relevant exemption conditions cease to apply, as well as the follow-up actions required of the heads of government departments. The administration also stated that internal codes of practice or guidelines would be formulated for the enforcement mechanism of the amended ordinance for compliance by relevant bureaus and departments. Members also noted that the bill proposes to shorten the interval for conducting energy audits from the current 10 years to 5 years. According to the administration's estimates, if large buildings concerned conduct an energy audit every 5 years, the cost will account for less than 1% of the annual electricity tariff of the building. Considering that energy-saving opportunities identified by energy audits may account for about 1% to 10% of the annual electricity tariff of a building, members suggested that the administration should consider introducing a labeling scheme to indicate the energy efficiency grades of buildings so as to encourage building owners to implement the energy-saving measures recommended in energy audit reports. The administration stated that one of the proposals in the bill is to mandate the disclosure of technical information in energy audit reports. The relevant data and information can assist in establishing benchmarks and other details when considering the future implementation of a building energy efficiency labeling scheme. As for the qualifications for REA, members requested that the administration explain the criteria for including engineers in the energy discipline and professional members of the Hong Kong Institute of Qualified Environmental Professionals, that is Hong Kong IQEP, as recognized qualifications for registration as REA. The administration stated that in the consideration of such matters, it will examine whether persons in the relevant discipline possess the necessary knowledge, qualifications, education, experience, or training. Each eligible applicant for registration as an REA is required to pass an interview with the Electrical and Mechanical Services Department to verify their experience and competence. The administration expects that the number of assessors will be sufficient to meet the service demand after the legislative amendments. On top of the above amendments, having considered other views of members, the administration will propose certain textual and technical amendments to the bill. The Bills Committee supports the administration's proposed amendments. President, the following are my personal views of the bill. Hong Kong buildings account for 90% of electricity used in Hong Kong. Over 50% of carbon emissions are from buildings in Hong Kong. In the face of serious climate challenge, we need to improve building energy efficiency and reduce demand for power generation. That is at the top of the agenda when it comes to reducing carbon emissions. We also need to reduce the burden on the public in relation to power tariff. We need to go green. CAP 610 Buildings Energy Efficiency Ordinance and its subsidiary legislation are the basis upon which the building energy efficiency is regulated. It came into operation in September 2012. Close to 2,700 buildings have already completed the first energy efficiency audits. Over half of the buildings have already completed the second audits. The relevant index has seen a marked drop of 20%. This shows that energy audits are effective in helping building owners to achieve better results of energy saving. Improving the existing building energy efficiency regime will help us to achieve the target of carbon neutrality by 2050. This is a necessary measure. A total of 4 main legislative amendments are covered under the bill. I think it is in line with the actual demand. All data centers are proposed to be covered under the regime. Recently, data centers are growing very fast. They account for a total of 4% of the power electricity in Hong Kong. After covering more data centers in Hong Kong, it is expected that in 2035, an additional 50 million watts of kilowatt hours of electricity will be saved. The administration will move amendments to amend the definition of data centers. So for the places used solely for storage of computer systems, servers, or telecommunications equipment will not be covered under the definition. This will help the trade to better understand the definition of data centers. There should be incentives to encourage the trade to go green or to switch to using renewable energy. The second amendment is to expand the scope of buildings that need to undertake energy audit from existing 2 types to a total of 11 types. At present, about 3.9 billion kilowatt hours of electricity will increase significantly by 1.4 times. It is expected that in 2035, an additional 540 million kilowatts of electricity will be saved. For places with commercial areas of less than 7,000 square meters, they will be exempted from conducting energy audits. These type of buildings only account for 10% of all the buildings in Hong Kong. And the cost effectiveness will not be significant even if they had been included in the scope. There is also an exemption clause for national security, and this is understandable. Just assume for a particular building of a government department is closely related to safeguarding national security, I believe it may not be convenient for REA to conduct searches on the premises concerned. The administration has taken on board the reasonable view of the Bills Committee. The Secretary for Environment and Ecology will add a section to provide clearer guidelines in relation to law enforcement. This is worth our support. Next, about the shortening of the intervals of energy audits to align with other jurisdictions such as mainland Singapore and so on. According to the EMSD, in relation to large-scale buildings, the cost of energy audits account for less than 1% of the total cost, but then the energy saving potential is as great as 10%. It is expected that these buildings will go green in order to reap better benefits. Next, on expanding the qualification for REA. At present, we have statutory professionals to make sure that building owners are complying with the standards. The Hong Kong IQEP and the Hong Kong IE will be made statutory organizations. The professional members will become eligible REA. I declare I am an honorary advisor to the Hong Kong IQEP, but I have no pecuniary interest. With the staunch support of the government and all walks of life, on the 30th of October 2024, my members' bill was passed. That is the Hong Kong Institute of Qualified Environmental Professionals Bill. The Hong Kong IQEP was incorporated to foster talents in this regard. This will meet society's demand. This time round, the government answers the call of society. Professional members of Hong Kong IQEP and the relevant engineers of the Hong Kong IE will be eligible for becoming REAs. They will enhance the efficiency as well as the professionalism of conducting energy audits. This will achieve a win-win situation for society. As a representative of the engineering sector, I express my sincere support for this. This bill will come into operation in phases. In the first stage, we will see the expanded qualification for REA, and this will prepare us for the stage 2. We expect to fully implement the amended ordinance by 2026. This will ensure the full implementation of the ordinance. Overall, the bill can meet different demands in relation to climate change, providing more opportunities for the sector, and so on. This will help different walks of life or different quarters of society to achieve carbon neutrality by 2050. President, I support the passage of the Buildings Energy Efficiency Amendment Bill 2025, as well as the amendments to be moved by the Secretary for Environment and Ecology.
Mr. Chen Xiuhong, I am a senior consultant with a power company. We're trying to achieve carbon neutrality by 2015. So in 2015, the government announced our Climate Action Plan 2015. That action plan proposed 4 major decarbonization strategies, including the reduction of waste, etc. Now, our buildings use 90% of our power. And that means cutting down energy use in our buildings will go a long way towards our decarbonization effort. That's why I support this amendment, so that we can cover more buildings under this scheme for energy audit. This amendment covers changes such as including data centers in our building energy efficiency scheme. More buildings, education buildings, municipal healthcare, community railway buildings, those buildings will need to arrange regular energy audits. We will do 5-year audits instead of 10-yearly audit. And we're also expanding the scope of people who can serve as registered energy assessors. Members of the Hong Kong Institution of Engineers and also the Hong Kong Institute of Qualified Environmental Professionals will also qualify as such energy assessors. Hong Kong is trying to develop its I&T sector. We will see more and more data centers. Data centers are power hungry. As at the middle of last year, data centers used 4% of the power generated in the city. I support the inclusion of data centers, whether they're standalone or part of industrial buildings, in our building energy efficiency scheme, because that will help us cut down our carbon emissions. The Buildings Energy Efficiency Amendment Bill 2025 defines data centers as a secure and controlled environment for housing computer systems, servers, telecommunications equipment, and associated supporting components. During our deliberations, we focused on the definition. We were worried that the scope was too wide. That's because you can have an area for storing or housing such equipment without being a data center. A computer company may simply have a space for storing the equipment, and that place is not a data center. I welcome the government's proposed amendment to the definition. So when you have a secure and controlled environment where you store and operate computer systems, servers, telecom equipment, and associated support components, you have a data center. And the amendment will also set out the kinds of support components. This amendment will clarify things and allay concerns in the industry. As I said, data centers are power hungry. Different places, including mainland cities, have set standards on power usage efficiency. Some set it at 1.2 or 1.3. New data centers are encouraged to use energy-efficient devices to reach the targeted PUE level. I asked the administration whether they would set target PUEs for the data centers. The government's reply was that it wanted to focus on the kinds of buildings first, but I encourage the government to set PUEs so that we can see greater building efficiency in data centers. More buildings will be covered under the building efficiency scheme: schools, hospitals, wet markets, libraries, and even railway stations. But there are four kinds of buildings. They have to meet building efficiency standards. Hotels, guest houses, common areas of residential flats, they are not part of the buildings that will need to arrange regular building audits. The administration's reply was that there would be little to gain from energy audits for the common parts of flats. That's because you have large clubs, swimming pools, central cooling systems in the common parts of flats. If you examine these parts from energy audits, and people want to save costs, they will not arrange energy audits. And then for new buildings and buildings that have gone through large-scale renovation, 5 years from now, those buildings may fall into disrepair. And we examine those buildings from energy audits, we won't be able to achieve the policy goal of saving energy and reducing carbon emissions. So I hope the government can revisit these four kinds of buildings and update the requirements. Now, with the written advice from a departmental head saying that a building should be exempted from energy audit on national security grounds, we can examine that building. But the bill does not say that once these exemption conditions cease to apply, those building owners or departmental heads will have to let the EMST know. I agree on the need to grant exemptions on grounds of national security, but once these exemption conditions no longer apply, those buildings should let the EMST know so that they can update the energy audit requirements accordingly. The government has been responsive. It will move an amendment stating that within 28 days after such conditions cease to apply, that departmental head will have to inform the EMST in writing. The administration will prepare internal guidelines for departments to follow. I welcome the setting of this deadline so that departments have something to follow. We will cover more buildings under energy audit. But then one problem top of mind for the industry is whether we will have enough people to serve as energy assessors. I welcome the proposal to allow members of the Hong Kong Institution of Engineers and also the professional members of the Hong Kong Institute of Qualified Environmental Professionals to serve as such assessors. That way, more professionals will be able to serve as assessors that can avoid the spiraling of costs due to a shortage of assessors. We want building management people to voluntarily or actively arrange energy audits. So I suggested adopting the model for the energy efficiency labels. Let's consider energy efficiency labels at different levels to encourage property management companies to arrange energy audits. Let's have different award levels. That way we can encourage initiative and we can also encourage firms to fulfill their corporate social responsibility. I saw somebody that support the bill and the amendment. Mr. Andrew Lam. Climate change leads to more extreme weather. Now we have seen colder winters and more severe rainstorms. In 2021, a report came out stating that without a massive reduction in CO2 emissions, we will see a 2 degrees Celsius rise in the global temperature in the 21st century. The UNEP and also a global body released a report in 2024. That report argues the construction industry emitted close to 40% of the overall CO2 emissions in the year. Now, the UN Environmental Program also pointed this out in 2021. The construction industry contributed more greenhouse gases than industries in general, and that points to a pressing need to decarbonize. That's why in December 2023 at the UN COP, there was a goal that was set. decarbonized construction should be the new norm, and this scheme has the support of 27 countries, including our country. Let's look at our own Climate Action Plan 2030. Buildings use 90% of our power. More than 60% of our carbon emissions come from building power usage, so this warrants our attention. The government has made a pledge, and that is carbon neutrality by 2050, so we have to act fast towards the goal. That means we have to review our outdated legislation and also control the energy usage of buildings. The Building Energy Efficiency Ordinance took effect in September 2012. It was meant to encourage building efficiency and reduce carbon emission. The ordinance has been around for 13 years, so the time has come to keep up with the times. We're amending the Buildings Energy Efficiency Ordinance and its subsidiary legislation. We're widening the scope to cover more buildings. And we're also providing for the technical information to be provided. Under this bill, we will also see more frequent energy audit. This bill is a significant step towards carbon neutrality. During the Bills Committee's deliberations, I focused on the practicalities of how the bill will work and cost effectiveness. We want carbon neutrality, but in that process, how much will we have to spend? Cost recovery is, I believe, top of mind for stakeholders. The administration told us an assessment had been made. The government looked at the fees for energy assessment. The prices range from $20,000 to $100,000. Cost recovery 8 to 10 years. I also focused on widening the scope of energy audits. Clause 17 amends Schedule 4 to Cap 610. We will cover 11 kinds of buildings. 9 of them we will have to go through energy audits for the first time. And then Schedule 4 says that buildings with a floor area of more than 7,000 square meters will have to undergo energy audits. Now, we are concerned about what's in scope and what's out of scope. Hotels and guest houses are not in scope. The administration said these buildings, primarily for residential purposes, are similar to residential flats. Guest houses mostly use household appliances. So making those buildings go through energy audits does not look cost effective. I've also been following the cases of data centers. Do we take it to be a data center the moment you have a server room? The administration pointed out clearly that for buildings principally occupied as data centers, only those buildings will be treated as data centers. A hospital building with a room for servers will still count as a hospital instead of data centers. I also focused on the definition of superstructure and also asked questions on what's included under building services installations. I asked the administration about whether they were clear on the definition of such terms to make sure we have no misunderstanding. Now, take caverns as an example. They're in a cave, you don't need a building plan. But the moment you have structures inside, you still have to submit a building plan. We now put different structures in caverns So will we need energy audits for caverns? Without a clear definition from the government, then things simply don't make sense. But the government has been responsive. It said it would consider my comment. The government pledged to take an incremental approach to gradually cover more structures of buildings in the building energy efficiency scheme. I support the Buildings Energy Efficiency Amendment Bill 2025.
Professor William Wong. Thank you, Deputy President. Global warming is becoming more and more serious. CO2 emissions have reached a record high. In 1969, CO2 density in the atmosphere was about 325%, and it rose to 400-odd%. Last week, the figure rose to 430%. The higher CO2 emissions, the more serious global warming is. Hong Kong is part of the globe. We all need to work together to reduce CO2 emissions. Our country has already set a target to achieve carbon peak in 2030, and by 2060 we'll have to achieve carbon neutrality. The SAR government has announced that we will strive to achieve carbon neutrality by 2050. Saving energy, saving or reducing carbon emissions, this is our goal. We all need to work together to advance to a future with lower CO2 emissions. Sustainable development is close to our heart. Buildings account for 90% of electricity used in Hong Kong. About half of carbon emissions are from buildings in Hong Kong. Therefore, as early as in 2012, the government already legislated that in major renovation works or in major construction works, the Buildings Energy Efficiency Code must be complied with. More types of buildings will have to conduct energy audits, and the intervals of energy audits also need to be shortened. This will help buildings in Hong Kong to save energy, improve energy efficiency and save CO2 emissions. Data centers use a lot of power. Data centers will be covered under the Buildings Energy Efficiency Standards. It is done in a timely manner. In recent years, with the robust development of AI, we have a lot of data centers in Hong Kong. We have seen data centers mushrooming. CO2 carbon emissions will reach 2.5 billion tons. Without doubt, this will pose a challenge to the government's goal to achieve carbon neutrality by 2050. To this end, the government is making legislative amendments to cover data centers, and this will save a total of 500 million kilowatts of electricity, and this is an important step towards achieving carbon neutrality. We have a higher demand for cloud computing, so we also need more data centers in Hong Kong. We shouldn't just rely on the Buildings Energy Efficiency Ordinance in order to rise to this challenge. The government needs to develop clean fuels, and we also need to formulate more plans to not emit carbon emissions. Say we need to go green. With technological advancement, the government needs to promote the technology of CCUS as well as the technology of CDR in order to promote low carbon transformation for Hong Kong. At present, the Eco Building Fund and the Smart Power Building Fund are introduced by the CPL as well as the Hong Kong E. In order to reduce carbon emissions in Hong Kong, the government may consider rolling out more measures to encourage enterprises in Hong Kong to adopt greener measures. Last of all, I'd like to talk about ESG, that is environment, society, and governance. AI is developing by leaps and bounds. There are a lot of ESG issues in relation to AI. That's why we need to develop ESG alongside AI. ESG should be introduced to school students in secondary and primary school students. They should also be promoted in the commercial sector. After all, we need to achieve carbon peak and carbon neutrality both in Hong Kong and in our country. We need to work together to promote the sustainable development of the world. We need to make contributions to the world. I so submit, Deputy President, I speak in support of the bill. Mr. Lam Chan Singh. Thank you. The organization I represent support the legislative amendments. We need to improve building energy efficiency. Then we can achieve the goals set in the Hong Kong's Climate Action Plan 2050, that is, reducing the electricity consumption of commercial buildings by 30% to 40% from the 2015 level. And for residential buildings, we need to reduce the electricity consumption of commercial buildings by 20 to 30% by 2050. The Buildings Energy Efficiency Ordinance came into operation in 2012. It's been in operation for about 13 years. It's time that we made changes. We propose to include data centers in the building energy efficiency management regime in Hong Kong. According to the government, as at mid-2024, the gross floor area of the data centers has reached a total of 970,000 square meters, accounting for some 4.4% of power use in Hong Kong. According to the estimate in the I&T Development Blueprint, local data centers in Hong Kong will even reach 1.5 million square meters. I believe the power use of data centers will surge. That's why it is important and necessary to cover all data centers in Hong Kong into the regulation of the said bill. At present, 2 types of buildings are being regulated. An additional 9 will be covered, say MTR stations, healthcare buildings, as well as government complexes. These are proposed to be included, and they have to conduct energy audits every 5 years. Despite an increase in the types of buildings being regulated, I suggest that the government should keep reviewing whether more types of buildings should be covered in the regime, say large-scale industrial buildings, hotels, and so on. Their power use could be very significant, so shouldn't they be conducting energy audits on a regular basis? New industrialization is going to be developed in the northern metropolis. Many buildings may have high power use. If they are going to conduct energy audits every 5 years, and if they are encouraged to save energy, are we going to have a greener northern metropolis? More importantly, buildings are required to undertake or to conduct energy audits, but there is no requirement for property management companies to implement measures or to implement the recommendations made in the report. I don't believe we should make it mandatory for companies to implement the measures, but then we shouldn't just shorten the interval of energy audits from 10 years to 5 years. Then they will be doing so just for the sake of it. Now there is just one incentive, that is to save annual electricity tariff to implement the recommendations in the report. BSI, that is Building Services Installations, the payback period may be as long as 1 year to 10 years. Then a lot of buildings may be reluctant to implement the recommendations. What they care is that they don't want to splash out on renovation works. So it is actually not easy at all to implement these amendments. Buildings are encouraged to provide information on a voluntary basis in relation to the implementation of recommendations. Then the government will have an understanding of how many buildings are willing to implement the recommendations. Then the government will be in a better position to take stock of the situation. The government earlier on already rolled out a scheme on a voluntary basis. Tax concessions are introduced. The two power companies have different funds or schemes, say electrical equipment upgrade scheme and the energy efficient equipment subsidy. They are encouraged to install energy efficient measures and installations, but not all companies are well up in these areas. I hope that the administration will step up publicity. These schemes should be turned into better account to provide subsidies to financially difficult organizations. This will further promote the going green of different buildings. Technical information is mandated to be published for checking in energy audit reports. I support it, but I also recommend that the administration should launch different labeling schemes or incentive schemes. The government should commend buildings faring well in this regard. The same type of buildings should draw reference from one another in order to promote the bill. I support the bill. Thank you.
Mr. Benson, look. Madam Deputy, I speak in support of the Building Energy Efficiency Amendment Bill 2025. I am one of the members of the Bills Committee. I participated in the scrutiny of the bill. The bill seeks to amend the Building Energy Efficiency Ordinance by regulating more types of buildings under the energy efficiency standards of building services installations, require more buildings to conduct regular energy audits, shorten the intervals of energy audits, include more qualifications eligible for registered energy assessors. Buildings account for 90% of Hong Kong's electricity consumption and over 50% of Hong Kong carbon emission is attributable to generating electricity for them. I have been promoting the development of ESG. I think that faced with global climate change, by amending this law ordinance, we can meet the carbon peak in 2030 and carbon neutrality goal in 2050. The administration estimates that upon full implementation of the amended ordinance by 2035, we can save an additional 500 million kilowatt hours of electricity, equivalent to the annual electricity consumption of about 150,000 three-person households. Three goals will be met. The electricity charges of buildings can be lowered, carbon emissions can be reduced, and we can then better implement the ESG in various corporations. During the scrutiny of the bill, I asked about how we conduct energy audits. Although suggestions will be set out in the energy audit, electricity charges and energy consumption should be able to be saved. But as to whether the enterprises will actually adopt the suggestions in the energy audits, it actually depends on the person in charge. Particularly given our financial situation, fiscal concerns is very important. So I think that the government should offer financial or technical support to enterprises with financial difficulties. And we also have to make good use of the community energy saving fund of the two power companies. The bill is a step forward to achieve carbon neutrality, and it has the support of the stakeholders. I hope that we will build a greener Hong Kong. Madam Deputy, I so submit. Thank you. Mr. Tony Chan. Madam Deputy, Hong Kong is famous with for having so many skyscrapers. They emit carbon. According to statistics, over 50% of the carbon emission come from buildings. That's why in 1998, the government rolled out a voluntary scheme to ask buildings to enhance their energy efficiency to lower energy consumption and carbon emission. In 2012, the government enacted the Building Energy Efficiency Ordinance to mandate 13 types of buildings to meet the energy efficiency standards of building services installations when they are newly completed or undergo major retrofitting works. Commercial buildings and portions of composite buildings for commercial use will have to undergo energy audits at an interval no longer than 10 years to make sure that their energy efficiency will not deteriorate over the years. This will improve energy efficiency. In order to further save energy, by 2035, the government proposes to lower the energy consumption of buildings by 50% and achieve half of the goals by 2035. Apart from enhancing energy efficiency of buildings, the EEB has drafted and prepared this Buildings Energy Efficiency Amendment Bill 2025 to increase the type of building that are subject to energy efficiency standards of building services installations to 15, including standalones, data centers, and portions of industrial buildings being built as and converted into data centers. I think that the reason for that is because data centers consume a lot of electricity, perhaps 10 times of that of commercial buildings. As Hong Kong has been developing INT, big data, artificial intelligence, we have a greater demand for data centers. So I think that it's reasonable for us to ask data centers to meet the energy efficiency standards. Another proposals under the bill is to increase the types of buildings that are required to conduct energy audits from 2 to 11. We are also going to shorten the interval of energy audits from 10 years to 5 years. Data shows that upon implementation of the measures for buildings that have undergone the energy audits for the second time, their energy index dropped 20% compared to their first energy audits. The bill also empowers the government to publish results of energy audits of certain buildings so that members of the public, including potential users of buildings or existing users, would know which buildings are of high energy efficiency so that they can save on energy or electricity charges. There are suggestions asking the government to create energy saving labeling scheme for different buildings so that buildings can improve their image if they are energy efficient. This will enhance the ESG's performance of the relevant corporations using the building. Madam Deputy, the Buildings Energy Efficiency Ordinance only regulate newly completed buildings or buildings that undergo major retrofitting works. But existing and old buildings account for larger portions of the total number of buildings in Hong Kong. If we can adopt an energy labeling scheme, then more owners of buildings will be more incentivized to enhance the energy efficiency of their buildings. This will allow us to meet the carbon emission goal more easily. As we have shortened the interval of audits and more buildings are required to meet the energy efficiency standards, members are concerned if whether there are enough qualified persons to conduct the audits and whether the length of time to conduct the audit will be longer. That's why the government proposed to increase the number of professionals that can be eligible for becoming a registered energy assessor. The cost of energy audit ranges from $20,000 to $100,000. Compared to the electricity charges that can be saved, I believe that the relevant fee level is acceptable. During the Bills Committee meetings, many members and I questioned the definition of data centers. For rooms storing servers, computer equipment may be considered data centers according to the original definition. The government has taken on board members' views, and the administration will move amendment to clarify and narrow down the definition of data centers so that no one will be caught inadvertently. Lastly, the bill empowers the administration to exempt certain buildings from undergoing energy audits. However, if there is a change in the purpose of the building, then I wonder if there is a mechanism to remove the exemption. The government said that they are going to move amendment, seeing that the administration has to inform the relevant director if the buildings is no longer serving the purpose of national security, and the relevant building will have to undergo energy audit. Thereafter, I support the amendment as was submit. I speak in support of the bill, and thank you.
Mr. Michael Lok. Madam Deputy, on behalf of the FTU, I give my support to this bill, the Buildings Energy Efficiency Amendment Bill 2025. President Xi Jinping stressed this point at the meeting. Achieving peak carbon and carbon neutrality is an essential requirement for achieving high-quality development. This is a major strategic decision made by the CPC Central Committee. Our country is trying to achieve peak carbon by 2030 and carbon neutrality by 2060. For the HUSAR, we are even more ambitious. We're trying to achieve carbon neutrality by 2050 instead, and this bill is a key step in that direction. Hong Kong is an international financial center, international shipping center, and international I&T center. That means there is a keen demand for data centers. Big data and AI are everywhere. Now, with AI, we will need to use chips, and that means many power-hungry data centers. We need greater energy efficiency for data centers. That's essential for achieving carbon neutrality. Data centers will be covered by the building's energy efficiency regulatory regime. That way, existing and newly built data centers will have to meet the higher energy efficiency standards. That way, we meet the market demand for data centers and we cut down our carbon emissions so that we can have both technology and a better environment. Now, for buildings with the certificate of compliance registration, buildings simply have to meet the code of practice for building energy audit for 4 kinds of buildings. Every 10 years, a registered energy assessor will have to be appointed to certify that the buildings meet the energy efficiency standards under the Code of Practice for Energy Efficiency of Building Services Installation. That means the building will have to maintain the standard it once reached. Under this bill, data centers will also have to go through energy audits. Under the EMSD's Code of Practice for Building Energy Audit, checks will have to be done for the power-consuming facilities of the building. Building owners will be informed of the energy-saving measures they can take. This is to achieve the goal of energy conservation. Technology will help such effort. More kinds of buildings will be covered under the energy audit, and that will help cut down our carbon emission. The bill also lays down the timetable for the first-time energy audits for buildings. To give building owners a clear idea what they should do, we suggest that the government put the information online and also compile everything, put together a pamphlet and send it to building owners so that they can comply with the requirement. The new buildings covered under the bill will have to arrange their first energy audit within 5 years of attaining their certificate of compliance.
科技日新月異，5年。
Technology moves fast. An energy audit every 5 years can ensure that buildings adopt the latest technology. That's why I support more frequent energy audits. It's good to have shorter intervals. That's to ensure the energy efficiency of buildings. We also need energy engineers with enough expertise to perform energy audits. Last November, Ecology passed the Hong Kong Institute of Qualified Environmental Professionals Ordinance. That institute now has a statutory footing. I also support the amendment to the subsidiary legislation on registered energy assessors so that corporate members of the Hong Kong Institution of Engineers and members of the Hong Kong Institute of Qualified Environmental Professionals will qualify as registered energy assessors. So that we will have a larger pool of such energy assessors. and building owners will have more choices. President Xi has said time and again that lucid waters and lush mountains are invaluable assets. So we should be cutting down carbon emissions in buildings. Let's keep up with the global trend and let's move faster and work towards our goals of peak carbon and carbon neutrality. I support the Buildings Energy Efficiency Amendment Bill 2025. Dr. Johnny Ng. Thank you, Madam Deputy. This bill seeks to strengthen the regulatory regime of buildings efficiency in Hong Kong. With greater buildings energy efficiency, we will need less power so that we can achieve carbon neutrality by 2050. I support the passage of the bill. Our buildings consume roughly 90% of our power. More than half of our carbon emissions come from the energy consumed by our buildings. Our government has the goal of reducing the power consumption of commercial buildings by 30 to 40% from the 2015 level, and for residential flats, we want to cut that down by 20 to 30% by 2050, and to achieve half of the above target by 2035. That's why we need to amend the ordinance and cover more buildings under the Buildings Energy Efficiency Scheme. Let's look around the world. More and more places are regulating the energy consumption of data centers as a way to encourage those centers to adopt more energy efficient appliances. They also want to encourage better management and operation models that can achieve greater efficiency. So under this regulatory regime, let's also set indicators. Apart from the law, let's also roll out more administrative measures. Let's encourage the use of renewable energy sources to further cut down energy usage of those centers. Let's also come up with more green financing schemes to speed up green development. In recent years, Singapore adopted green financing models. That helps the low-carbon transformation in Singapore. Years ago, the Singaporean government launched a green transformation incentive scheme. That's to support buildings in going green. Part of the cost is covered by the government support, and there are also levels of green certification as well as incentive for decarbonization. So in Singapore, once you reach a certain level in cutting carbon emission, those buildings can qualify for government grants. For us, let's also encourage the use of AI and technology. Let's encourage buildings to use the latest technologies such as smart energy management infrastructure so that we speed up the digitalization of energy and green management. I hope that this bill will foster energy conservation so that buildings will have to pay less on power, and that's how we can cut down CO2 emissions, and that will be a milestone for our move towards carbon neutrality. I so submit.
Mr. Michael Lee. Thank you, Deputy President. The government is proposing legislative amendments to the Buildings Energy Efficiency Ordinance. As many members have said, the administration's goal is to achieve a win-win situation. First of all, we want to reduce electricity tariff for buildings, and we also want to go green and reduce carbon emissions. I believe this is worth our support, and this shows our resolve to counter climate change. Just now, Dr. Johnny Ng said that this legislative amendment is to improve the building energy efficiency regime in Hong Kong. This helps the building to reduce power demand and will also reduce the burden on the public. In 2050, we want to achieve carbon neutrality, and this amendment will help us to achieve so. We need to understand in 2035, the government expects to save 500 million kilowatts of electricity, equivalent to the electricity tariff of 150,000 three-person households. And we expect to save 2.5 billion kilowatt hours of electricity. First of all data centers will be covered under the bill. This is one of the amendments. Indeed, at present we have AI, we have data centers as well. All these use a lot of power. They have very high power usage. In the future, we will have the Northern Metropolis, and we believe there will be more of these data centers in the Northern Metropolis. According to the EMSD, all buildings in Hong Kong account for 90% of electricity used in Hong Kong, of which there's a surge of 31% in power use on the part of data centers, accounting for some 4.4% of electricity used in Hong Kong. The interval of energy audits will be shortened from 10 years to 5 years, so that we will be on the same par with the mainland Singapore, Tokyo. Railway stations, hospitals will also be covered. So average index show that energy user will see a drop by 20%. This shows that energy audits are very effective. Regarding the mandatory publication of certain technical information in energy audit reports, the government wants to see the publication of lifespan, energy saving potential, as well as energy saving coefficient of BSIs in building. Just like electrical equipment, when we can see a label, then we will have an idea of the energy saving potential. In the market, there are a lot of different energy saving proposals. Sometimes landlords don't have to pay, but then they will have a payback period, save photovoltaic panels, solar panels. This will help them save power use, and this will help develop the green economy of Hong Kong. In relation to safeguarding national security concerns, the administration is going to move an amendment that a written notice will have to be submitted to the director of EMS. Then the building will be exempted from conducting energy audits. But then the owner will have, the department head must notify the director in writing, and upon the cessation of the agreement, then the owner must conduct an energy audit within 12 months after the exemption ceases. Too high energy use will exacerbate the heat island effect in Hong Kong. We are seeing more common climate change. Through improving buildings' energy efficiency, it is expected that we can mitigate the impact of climate change, and we can also improve quality of air so that we will have a healthier living environment in Hong Kong. This will also help us to minimize power outages, equipment default, and this will enhance the well-being of the public in Hong Kong. This will improve the sense of happiness in Hong Kong. Improving the building energy efficiency will lower the operational costs for enterprises. This will definitely promote the development of green technologies. High value-added services will also benefit from this amendment. Then Hong Kong enterprises will align with the standards of ESG around the world. Then more green capital will be attracted to Hong Kong for investment. Then we will have a healthy circulation or cycle. This helps us achieve or to develop new quality productive forces. The administration should keep rolling out new measures. The administration should liaise with the trade in order to formulate measures suitable for the trade. The government should provide more supporting measures so that different trades and companies in Hong Kong will have a shot in their arm. We also need more green law talents. We need green ESG talents. We need environmental protection talents. In different universities, more courses or programs should be provided. We need to keep enhancing our regulatory regime. Technological advancements are developing by leaps and bounds. We need to promote the digital infrastructure development of our country so that we will consolidate our position as an Asian green financial center. I also submit I support the bill. Thank you, Deputy President. Dr. Ben Chen. Thank you, Deputy President. I speak in support of the Buildings Energy Efficiency Amendment Bill 2025. This is in response to the dual carbon targets of our country. This is also an important piece of legislation for the transformation of Hong Kong. This helps Hong Kong to improve buildings' energy efficiency as source. I agree with the general direction of the bill, but I'd like the administration to address three main fronts squarely. A balance should be struck between the administration and the sector. Some owners' corporations have concerns about the cost of energy audits. Each time round, the cost of conducting energy audits ranges between 20,000 and 100,000. And the interval of conducting energy audits is going to be shortened from 10 years to 5 years. And indeed, these will create a heavier burden. But by shortening the interval of energy audits from 10 years to 5 years, will we see a significant improvement in building energy efficiency for buildings with growth floor area of less than 7,000 square meters? They will be exempted. However, there's an increasing vacancy rate of stores and shopping malls. Our economy is changing, and the utilization rate may keep dropping. We may need to conduct energy audits on a more frequent basis. This may impose a burden on these sectors. So the government needs to take into account the situation to decide whether these amendments are suitable. On mandating the publication of technical information in energy audit reports, some technical information will be made mandatory. Say the operational period as well as other indicators. The aim is to enhance efficiency. Enhance transparency rather. But we need to strike a balance between the sensitivity of information and the public's right to know. There may be proprietary equipment or technical details. Data centers are some of the examples. If they are made to disclose all the information, their business strategies may be impacted on. Therefore, I believe the administration should only require buildings to disclose an overall score. They shouldn't be made to disclose all information. Regarding providing continuous support in relation to buildings' energy efficiency, let me give you an analogy. After we have undergone a medical checkup, we definitely need to address the problem we have identified. It is important to have technical support. Some buildings may have identified the issues, but then they couldn't improve the situation, particularly aged buildings. For buildings with a shopping mall on lower floors, if these buildings need to replace the equipment, it may be very costly. It may cost them millions or even tens of millions of dollars to do so. I hope that the administration will take a proactive approach. You need to draw reference from other BDs. Probably you may consider providing technical support or provide standardized proposals or solutions so that they will find it easier to assess how much cost they will need. Low interest loan schemes should also be provided to some landlords. Then they will identify the problem, and then they can improve the building's energy efficiency. Buildings account for 90% of electricity use in Hong Kong. Reducing carbon emissions is all important. The key isn't just about the provisions. It requires the concerted efforts of the administration and different quarters of society. I support the bill, and I look forward to working together with departments and bureaus to make sure that this amended ordinance will be implemented. Thank you, Deputy President.
多謝主持。
Dr. Hui Simon Lee. Thank you, Madam Deputy. Buildings Energy Efficiency Amendment Bill 2025 aims at saving energy and going green among buildings in Hong Kong. This is how we can transform our city. I will talk about regulation of data centers, upgrading of buildings, carbon management, and a supply chain. I will give you some comments and suggestions. First, I agree that we should require data centers to meet energy efficiency standards of building services installations. I think that this move is very forward-looking and strategic. Data centers as the heart of AI and frontier technology, according to the CLP annual report in 2024, the electricity demand of data centers grew by 8.6% in the same year. However, the overall electricity demand of Hong Kong grew by only 1%. So this shows that by defining data centers, we can better support them. I think that the government should make reference to the approach adopted by the mainland by setting different electricity consumption levels to different centers, and we should offer different facilitation measures to enhance the attractiveness. Second, on transformation, we should digitalize and upgrade our buildings to promote the development of a smart city. The bill focuses on buildings with high electricity consumption. However, we should not stop at energy consumption. We should take opportunity of this amendment to transform buildings into energy-saving nodes. Data shows that buildings account for 90% of the energy consumption in Hong Kong. However, only 30% of local buildings are equipped with a monitoring system. If we can put in place IoT sensor system or smart devices when we upgrade our equipment, we can achieve 3 types of breakthroughs. First, improvement of energy efficiency through monitoring the consumption of water, electricity, coupled with dynamic adjustment of AI. We can adjust the temperature of air conditioners or the level of lightings. By this, we can further enhance our digitalization level. Second, we should integrate the building energy efficiency system to the city management mechanism. This will allow us to offer concrete support for achieving the dual carbon goals. Third, the smart system should collect different data through air monitoring sensing system. We can while saving energy and hence the comfort level of indoor areas. I have a few suggestions. First, we should establish a subsidy scheme for a smart upgrade of buildings. For owners of buildings that want to install such equipment or devices, we should offer subsidy to them. Second, we should require buildings to reserve outlets for the installation of these smart devices. Third, we should create a supply chain of energy audit, carbon audit, and transactions, so on and so forth. In order for us to achieve the carbon neutrality goal in 2050, we have to marketize the carbon management. The application of carbon audit results is very limited, so this undermines our progress in achieving our goals. So I think that we should create the supply chain in 3 different stages. First, in 2 to 3 years' time, we should standardize our carbon auditing standards. We should formulate standards of energy efficiency. Say, by saving 1,000 kilowatt hours, it should be equivalent to 0.6 total CO2. This is a more scientific approach. Second, we should take another 2 to 3 years to promote the transaction of carbon credits to allow the owners to sell their carbon credits to high emission buildings. Third, well, this is how we can create an ecosystem. We should integrate carbon data with the financial market. We should offer access linked to carbon management. This is how we can create a low-carbon ecosystem and supply chain. We have to create more energy-efficient building and a green city. Building Energy Efficiency Amendment Bill is a milestone in our path towards carbon neutrality. This is how we can facilitate upgrade and transformation of building. As said in the Hong Kong Climate Action Plan 2050, carbon neutrality is not just an environmental goal. This is how we can reshape our competitiveness. Through policy innovations, hopefully, each and every building will become a leader in promoting energy conservation. I so submit. Thank you. Ms. Judy Chan. Madam Deputy, I speak in support of the Buildings Energy Efficiency Amendment Bill 2025. The bill seeks to enhance the energy efficiency of buildings. As 90% of Hong Kong's buildings account for 90% of Hong Kong's electricity consumption. More types of buildings are required to undergo energy efficiency audit under the bill. I think that's reasonable. Another focus of the bill is to regulate data centers. Data centers is one of the growing engines of our economy. However, they consume electricity very significantly. The electricity consumption per square meter of data centers is 10 times higher than other buildings. So how can we strike a balance between INT development and energy efficiency? That's a question that the government has to work on. Through the bill, data centers will be required to meet the energy efficiency standards. I think that's reasonable. Standalone data centers and portions of industrial buildings being built and converted into data centers will be required to meet the energy efficiency standards, and by this we can save 50 million kilowatt hours of electricity. However, this may not be enough. Now we have to talk about PUE, power usage effectiveness. In the panel and the Bills Committee meetings, members and the administration touched on this point. This PUE is a value for assessing the energy efficiency. It is calculated by dividing the total electricity consumption of data centers by the electricity consumption of the data equipment. The most ideal figure is 1. Most data centers try to achieve a PUE of 1 or lower, because this shows that the electricity charges will focus on areas other than lightings or air conditioners. There's no mention on PUE in the bill, but if we look at the mainland cities, they have policies regulating PUE of buildings. They use this index to assess the energy efficiency of buildings. In 2018, our country promulgated a policy banning the construction of data centers of PUE more than 1.4. Shanghai does the same. Data centers should not have a PUE higher than 1.4. For newly constructed data centers, their PUE should be lower than 1.3. In 2019, Shenzhen restrict the data centers PUE to 1.25 or lower. That's how they can obtain a 40% as financial support from the local government. Our country has strict requirements of PUE over data centers, so I think that we should follow suit. Upon passage of the bill, I think that we should collect data on PUE of data centers in Hong Kong and look into how we can encourage data centers to lower their PUE. Or perhaps we should set an upper limit of PUE to ensure energy efficiency. We mandate some buildings to conduct regular energy audits, but as to whether the building's owners or tenants have to take follow-up action after the audit, there's no strict requirements. As mentioned by the administration in the Bills Committee meetings, there is incentives for buildings to reduce their energy consumption. The intervals of energy audits will be shortened from 10 years to 5 years. Despite our technological advancement, it's hard for us to make sure that the relevant buildings will save energy by replacing their energy efficient equipment. Perhaps we should encourage buildings to use alternative system to see how they can further save energy and to improve their energy efficiency. As far as I understand, EMSD has been performing energy audits for buildings over the past 7 years. Some 2,000 buildings have undergone the relevant assessment. So I hope that the government will step up their efforts in this regard. Thank you. Does any other member wish to speak? If not, I now call upon the Secretary for Environment and Ecology to reply, then the debate will come to a close. Secretary. Madam Deputy, the second reading debate on the Buildings Energy Efficiency Amendment Bill 2025, the bill in short, has been resumed today. I would like to express my heartfelt gratitude to Dr. Lo Wai-kwok, Chairman of the Bills Committee, for his leadership, other members of the Bills Committee for their support, and the Electrical Secretariat for their help so that the scrutiny of the bill could be conducted efficiently and smoothly. I'm also very grateful to a total of 14 members for their views expressed during the debate and for their support for it. The bill seeks to enhance the existing building energy efficiency management regime. Buildings account for 90% of Hong Kong's electricity consumption, and over 50% of Hong Kong's carbon emission is attributable to generating electricity for them. Improving energy efficiency of buildings will help us save energy and reduce carbon emission. Currently, the Buildings Energy Efficiency Ordinance, Chapter 610, requires buildings to comply with energy efficiency standards of building surface installations when they are newly constructed or when major retrofitting works are carried out. The ordinance also requires commercial buildings to conduct energy audits at intervals no longer than 10 years to promote energy efficiency. Since the implementation of the ordinance in September 2012, there are over 2,300 new buildings and over 15,000 major retrofitting works in existing buildings that meet the energy efficiency standards. In addition, around 2,700 buildings have completed their first energy audits, with over half of them having had their second energy audits completed. Based on our experience in enforcing the ordinance, we propose to amend the following 5 areas of the ordinance to further enhance building energy efficiency in Hong Kong. A. Regulate the energy efficiency standards of building surface installations for all data centers in Hong Kong. Currently, commercial buildings in which data centers may be located are required to meet the energy efficiency standards. However, given the high electricity consumption of data centers and that more of them will be completed, we propose to expand the scope of the ordinance to cover standalone data centers and portions of industrial buildings being built as and converted into data centers under the regime. That is, to expand the types of buildings covered from 13 to 15. 2. Require more buildings to conduct regular energy audits. Based on data collected from the second energy audit reports done by the EMSD, the electricity consumption of buildings dropped by 20% compared to the first audit, which shows that energy audits promote energy conservation. Therefore, we propose to subject also buildings used for the purposes of education, community, municipal services, medical and healthcare services, railway stations, etc. to energy audit. That is, to expand the number of types of buildings that are required to undergo regular energy audits from 2 to 11. In light of the comments received during the consultation period, we recommend, with the exception of data centers, small and medium-sized buildings with a gross floor area not exceeding 7,000 square meters, that is approximately 75,000 square feet, be exempted from energy audits to strike a balance between cost-effectiveness and regulation. 3. Shorten the intervals of energy audits from 10 years to 5 years. To encourage the timely adoption of green and energy-efficient equipment and technologies in existing buildings, thereby utilizing the benefits of conducting energy audits, we propose to shorten the intervals of energy audits from the current 10 years to 5 years. This will make our practices comparable to those in our neighboring regions, such as the mainland, Singapore, and Tokyo, Japan. 4. Publish certain technical information in energy audit reports, such as energy efficiency coefficient and energy saving potential of major building services installations to enhance data transparency. And 5, include more qualifications eligible for registration as registered energy assessors, REA. We propose including professional members of the Hong Kong Institute of Engineers and Hong Kong Institute of Qualified Environmental Protections or professionals to be eligible persons to apply for registration as REA. The proposed inclusion is conducive to the implementation of the amended ordinance by increasing the potential number of REAs to meet the demand for energy audits. Upon passage and the full implementation of the amended ordinance, we estimate that an additional 500 million kilowatt-hours of electricity equivalent to the annual electricity consumption of about 150,000 three-person households will be saved in 2035. We will keep in view the implementation of the bill to include more types of buildings that are subject to energy audit, and we will consult the trade. We have conducted extensive consultation of the bills since as early as November 2023, including trade associations, the property management industry, the construction industry, professional bodies, public service organizations, and other stakeholders. We have also consulted the Energy Advisory Committee, the Carbon Neutral and Sustainable Development Committee, and the Advisory Council on the Environment, respectively. Both the stakeholders and the panel of LegCo were supportive of the proposal. Since the first reading of the bill in the LegCo on the 26th of March, the Bills Committee held 2 meetings between April and May this year to scrutinize the bill. The BC has had in-depth discussions on the policy intent, the operation of the existing ordinances, the drafting of the bill, and so on, and has put forward a lot of valuable views after careful consideration. The administration has taken on board many of the suggestions made by the members and will move amendment to enhance the clarity of the provisions. I will explain more about the amendments at the committee stage later. Subject to the passage of the bill, we will implement the amendments in 2 stages. First, we will bring the provisions for updating the qualifications eligible for registration as REA by commencement notice in September 2025. That is 3 months after the gazettal of the ordinance, and bring the remaining provisions into operation in September 2026. That is 15 months after the gazettal of the ordinance, with a view to bringing the amended ordinance into full operation within 2026. President, this amendment to the ordinance can achieve a 3-win situation. First, lowering the building energy consumption. Second, reducing carbon emissions. And third, promoting the development of green economy and helping Hong Kong achieve the dual carbon goal. I hope that members will support and pass the bill.
And I'll put the question to you that the Buildings Energy Efficiency Amendment Bill 2025 be read the second time. Would those in favor please raise their hands? Those against, please raise their hands. I think the question is agreed by a majority of the members present. I declare the motion passed. Buildings Energy Efficiency Amendment Bill 2025. This council now becomes a committee of the whole council to consider the Buildings Energy Efficiency Amendment Bill